Hey everyone. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at conflict. Now, most people have experienced conflict in their life, but just note that it's the struggle between two opposing forces. And just note that opposing means the opposite of something. And that the conflict is what drives the story. Without the conflict, we do not have the story. See my Avengers example, see any superhero movie example. Without those characters fighting against each other, there is no story. All right, so just ask yourself real quickly here, what are your experiences with conflict? It can be conflict with a person, a place, a thing, idea, etc. Write me real quickly right here, what is a time where you have conflicted with something? You have had a conflict with something, someone, some place. And if you're really struggling, it could be as simple as Mr. Black wants me to write this quick write, and I don't want to do that. That is literally a conflict right there. If you don't want to do this, that's a conflict. I didn't want to get out of bed this morning. That's a conflict. Okay. So moving into our two categories of conflict, you have internal conflict. Now, internal conflict, this is the struggle between a character and themselves. This happens within yourself, usually about the character's beliefs, ideas, or feelings, something in your brain that you feel strongly about, that you believe in. All right. And this conflict involves a decision the character is trying to make. And that's the big key here, is you are making some form of a decision, right? And once you make that decision, then you can move into an external conflict if possibly that conflict, that decision conflicts with somebody else. But as long as it's just with inside you, just making that decision, it is an internal conflict. Should I cheat on this test? Should I lie to my parents? Should I skip school? Right? These are decisions you are making. Now, once you make those decisions, then you might run into an external conflict, which we'll talk about here in a second. But as long as you're just making that decision, that's that first step, that's when it's an internal conflict. Now, if you've skipped school and you are in trouble with the principal from skipping school, now you're in an entirely different situation. So go ahead and write for me one time where you have experienced an internal conflict. And again, this can be as simple as this morning deciding what shoes to wear, deciding what to have for breakfast. Those are internal conflicts. You are trying to make a decision, right? And those are conflicts that don't really affect anyone else. They wouldn't shift into an external conflict like cheating on a test or lying to your parents, etc. Now, our second type or category of conflict is external conflict. Now, with external conflict, there are many more types, but this is a struggle between the character and an outside force. The conflict would be something outside of your thoughts, outside of your beliefs. So this moves outside into the outside world. It's not all with inside of yourself. And when it comes to external conflict, right, example would be you are stuck outside when a tornado heads towards you at an alarming speed. Now, so what is a time where you think you have experienced an external conflict? I always think of when I was younger, I got attacked by a dog. That's like an external conflict that always stuck with me. Luckily, it didn't scar me enough to not love dogs. I still love them, but I was attacked by one. We were just standing there and this German Shepherd attacked me. I actually broke skin. It was crazy. Anyway, there are 5 types of external conflicts: character versus society or group, versus nature, versus technology, and versus the supernatural. All right. Now, our first type here is going to be character versus character. Now, with character versus character, this is when a character struggles against another character. It's the protagonist, right, our main character, versus the antagonist, the character trying to stand in their way. Because remember, when it comes to these types of conflict, we are looking for the main conflict in the story. So here we have protagonist versus antagonist, Tom versus Jerry. And I'll let you decide which one you think is the protagonist and which one that you think is the antagonist. But what's important to note here is we have 2 animals against each other, and that's why it's character versus character. If you added myself into this story and it was me driving that train versus Jerry on the train tracks, now it's no longer character versus character. It'd be something different, because I am an animal, but we consider ourselves as humans kind of a little bit above animals because of our consciousness and so on and so forth. So this would be character versus nature here. Right? Character versus nature. Now, with character versus nature, this is when a character struggles with a force of nature. Now, the force of nature usually is causing the character to try and survive. And this is a drastic one here. You're stuck in this tornado. Dorothy here, stuck in this tornado here. She's about to get blown away. But you can also have things like character versus an animal, right? Character versus elements of nature. So like you ran into a tree or you're stuck in the ocean. But you can also have things like sicknesses, because sicknesses are a part of nature as well. So like COVID-19, that was an example of character versus nature. All right. Now, moving into our next one here, we have character versus society. This is generally the hardest one. This is when a character stands up to support their beliefs. This is when a character is struggling against the laws within a community. Now, you have to ask yourself, what is a community, right? A community is like the city of Chesapeake, right? But a community could also be Hickory Middle School. A community could also be Mr. Black's classroom. And so when you are going against the rules of that classroom, against that school, against that city, against that country, that's when you are in that character versus society section. So don't always, sometimes people say group. I like society more just because it's not necessarily like a group of people. It is, but don't think of it that way. Think of it as breaking a rule or going up against what, other people, like standing up for what you believe in, because it doesn't always have to be like, oh, I broke a school rule, right? It could be, looking at the civil rights movement of the 1960s when African Americans were fighting against their rights, fighting for their rights, not against their rights, right? Standing up for what they believed in. So it could be something like that. Our next one here is character versus technology. Now with character versus technology, this is when a character struggles with something that is man-made. Anything that humanity has made can be considered technology. Usually we're going to think of like our cell phones, computers, things like that. The Terminator is a really great example of character versus technology. But here you see this guy just losing his mind, just destroying all of his technology. Anything that is man-made could be considered technology though, okay? And then our newest one here is character versus supernatural, all right? This is when a character struggles with anything that is beyond our control, all right? So something that we didn't make. So just keep this in mind. If machines are attacking the country, or like AI has taken over, that is something man-made, so that would be technology. Now if aliens are coming to Earth, or ghosts, or zombies, or vampires, or werewolves, etc., 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 that's when we are moving now into this supernatural world, okay? And it's also important to know that supernatural, right? So if it's like Superman versus Aquaman, or versus another supernatural force, this is not character versus supernatural. This is character versus character, because they both are superpowered characters. Where it would be character versus supernatural is if I went up against Superman. It would not be a good fight. It would be very quick and he would win. And that's what we just need to keep in mind. Characters have to align with one another for it to be character versus character. Otherwise, it is character versus whatever here we have been talking about. Now, you have a practice ahead of you. Quickly, we're going to answer this quick, right? What is the purpose of conflict in movies or TV shows? Like, what do we think that purpose is there? We're going to do quick quizzes. I promise this time I have the right quizzes link in your assignment. And then here, what type of conflict is represented in each of these clips, and they should be linked within your notes for you, and you just answer those questions. All right, what type of conflict is represented in each of these clips? And as always, if you have any questions, this one went a little longer than I wanted it to, but please let me know. Please always don't hesitate to ask me for any help, and then we're going to move into our practices. Okay, so take care, everybody.